that's when the fun started. Training every day. It was a massive learning curve for me. We all knew, how important it was. Beckham, Scholes, Cantona, Keanes. So mentally, it was very tough. As bad as it sounds, I think it actually helped me in life. But I think Sir Alex's method was...
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Academy Podcast with me, Kamil Shah. Wherever you're tuning in today, whatever you're doing, whether you're on your commute to work, on your daily walk, at the gym, or even just relaxing at home, I hope that this finds you in a state of peace. Now, as you know, I've been a lifelong Manchester United fan, okay? Listen, if you're not a Manchester United fan, keep listening, because I can bet you 100% over the next 60 minutes, you're going to learn a thing or two, okay? Today's episode is a truly special episode because it's the first one where we have a former football player from one of the greatest teams in football history, okay? He's worn the red shirt with the iconic badge on his chest. Joining me today is none other than former Manchester United player and UEFA licensed coach, Kirk Hilton.
Hi, Camille.
Welcome, Kirk.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
With the likes of Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs, David Beckham, and the Neville brothers, Kirk was part of the famed Manchester United production line that created the most dazzling array of football talent in that era, playing under the club manager, Sir Alex Ferguson. Kirk also played for other clubs like Royal Antwerp and Blackpool, where he played a huge part in the club's success. Kirk's passion for the game endured, and coaching young players has become his main focus, passing on his own experience as well as techniques, methods from some of the best coaches and one of the most successful clubs of our time. Currently, he is the sports director at GoPro Football Academy here in Dubai. Now, today's episode, we're going to be talking about mental resilience and how football can help with mental resilience, especially for youngsters and kids. Before we go into that, Kirk, I just want to invite you to just introduce yourself and, when was the first time you got introduced to football as a sport?
So, I started football quite a young age. In the UK, obviously, it's quite huge from grassroots level. So my mum and dad put me into a football club when I was around 6 years of age, my local team called Flixton Football Club. And I just played for fun to start off with. There was so many kids in our area that were just having fun, learning the game. And then once it didn't become very serious, but we started to play team football and games, competitive games around the age of 8 years of age. And it was at this age where I was starting to show a little bit of a talent. And there was some scouts that came to watch us play at this time. And funnily enough, one of my teammates, a lad called John Paul Hughes, had been picked up by Man United the week before.
Oh, wow.
So I think his dad had a word with Brian Kidd, who was at the time, Brian Kidd, who was obviously a legend in the game. And he was the head of this Centre of Excellence at Man United. So he came and watched me the week after. And I just remember after the game, my mum being pulled aside by Brian Kidd, and he basically invited me to the Centre of Excellence training, which at the time was twice a week at the Cliff, where Man United, where Man United's first team train. So I still remember it to this day. I was so excited. I was, even the week before, I was thinking like I wanted to be in my friend's shoes where he'd been invited to play at Man United. So this started the sort of career path for me, training twice a week at the Centre of Excellence. All the best, I would probably say 40 to 50 boys at that age group, all training twice a week. Again, it was all related around fun, little bits of technique stuff, but mainly just playing games, lots of in-house games. But it was an eye-opener to me, obviously, to see the levels of players that age, and obviously it's something great to be a part of. So that was my start of my journey. And then what happens then is each year you get a letter at the end of the year to see if they're going to keep you on for the next year. So again, it's that sort of feeling of, am I going to get another year out of Manchester United? We were trained by Brian Kidd, Nobby Stiles, Jimmy Ryan, so World Cup winners and European Championship winners as well. And it was a progressive learning sort of curve for me to go from like under 8s, then under 10s, and then once you get to under 14s, that's when it becomes even more serious, because that's when you sign your 2-year contract from 14 to 16.
So 14 was the age where you signed for Manchester United.
Yeah, they call it schoolboy forms.
Right.
So you then sign a 2-year contract. So every other year was year on year. But this is a big step. This is where you think, okay, there might be an opportunity where I might end up being a professional footballer.
Wow.
So 14 to 16, I managed to get my schoolboy forms. And then once I got to 16, I was on the sort of peripheral where I wasn't sure whether they were going to sign me. So they gave me 6 weeks to prove myself because we had such a big squad and such a great, alloy of talent, really. We had international players at that age group. So at 16, luckily, I did very well in those 6 weeks, and then I signed it's called a YTS back in the youth training scheme back in those days, and that's when you're a full-time footballer.
Right.
You're not professional, but you're full-time. So then that's when the fun starts, where you're actually training every day. You're in the same building as your Beckhams, your Scholes, your Cantonars, your Keanes. Wow. And it's just an amazing. You can't believe it. First week, you're just in training, and you're having dinner with, Sir Alex is there. All the first team are there. All they're coming in the same day as you, and I think it's just a fantastic environment to be in from those age groups. So yeah, 16 to 18 was a big thing for me.
I love that. I mean, one of the key things that I picked out that you mentioned right at the beginning was fun.
Yeah.
Right, because I think that's quite critical and important to keep reminding ourselves, the fun of doing things. And I think for you mentioned about football being an enjoying, sport, right? Now, why I say that is because, again, we're going to be talking about mental resilience, but a lot of the things that we see on the telly nowadays, right? The pressures that players get on the pitch. What we don't often see is the fun that goes into the training sessions, for example. You get glimpses of, players having fun, but on the pitch, yes, it's a different scenario. But there's that balance between when you need to have fun and when you need to be serious on the pitch. So how do you manage that balance? I guess
it is tough. As a child growing up, I think you learn more when you're having fun. Yeah, so I think it's so important that you bring that fun aspect into football. And yes, now it's a completely different era where there's so much technology, tactical stuff going on that sometimes that can be lost. But as a child, as we're coaching our kids at the academy, they need to have fun as well. Yes, we want to improve them and drill them and all that sort of stuff. But if they're going to improve, they're going to need to enjoy it and want to come back and be chomping at the bit to train every day. So I think there has to be a fun element, but also a little bit of a serious element, obviously, when you're leading up to games and, that intensity when you are playing. But it all stems from having fun, and that's why we all enjoy the beautiful game. As kids, that's why we want to play, for fun, to score a goal, to make a tackle. And I think that's really, really important. I think at the moment, sometimes in the UK, especially, it's become a little bit too intense for the kids. And I think they need to enjoy it a little bit more, and that's how you'll see the big improvements.
I mean, it's quite interesting that you mention the comparison to what's happening back in the UK. Let's bring it to where you are now in Dubai, and you've set up the GoPro Football Academy. Yeah. Now, how has that come about, and what has been the decision to set up GoPro here in Dubai as opposed to, for example, in the UK?
I think for me, as an ex-football player, I wanted to pass on my knowledge of the game. And I do feel that in Dubai, there should be the same opportunities that you would have in the UK in terms of like the level of coaching, the pathways, and the opportunities. Now, just because you live in the Middle East, it doesn't mean that you can't have the same goals as players in the UK. We understand that there's only 1% of players that make it as footballers, but we're trying to also give them opportunities where we can inspire them and make them, maybe instead of going back to the UK on a professional contract, they can maybe go to America on a scholarship and play football and have the education at the same time. So we're trying to bridge the gap, I would say, from UK football to the UAE, where they are going to get these opportunities. Last week we just played in the MENA Cup, which is a great competition, and again, the qualification for that is you have the opportunity in April, if you got into the top 4, to play against UK teams. So I think the UAE football over here is getting better and better and more competitive. The coaching's getting better, so I think it's really important that we give the children over here the same opportunities as you would in the UK. And that's what we're trying to do at GoPro.
And I think off the back of that, I want to thank you and everyone at the Academy for doing what you do, because you're giving this opportunity for kids here, both, local kids and also expats to enjoy the beautiful game and to train. And, like you're saying, passing on the knowledge that you have from the club to the kids. And that ripple effect, I always go back to the ripple effect of what can you do as a person that not only benefits yourself, but benefits the wider community. And I think this is a fantastic thing that you guys are doing. So I want to thank you for doing that here in Dubai. Yeah.
No problem at all. It's been great. It's been, like I said, we've been doing it now for 12 years. GoPro's been going for 12 years now. So we've had our ups and downs with COVID and kids not being able to play football. But I think, we're very established now in Dubai. We have a great partnership with the school that we're at as well, who have backed us as well. Our aim is to, like I said, improve every person that comes through the door, is to make sure that they improve as a footballer and as a person as well. I think we're not going to create millions of professional footballers, but if we can improve the player and also the personality and improve the social skills, then I think that's a huge thing to come out of signing up to GoPro.
I want to come to the next question. We can agree on the benefits of sports, to promote physical and mental health. But in your opinion, what makes football different from other sports?
For mental health, I think that first of all, that team bonding, that team sport, team ethic, that culture comes from football. Individual sports, it's all about yourself, which is obviously you have to be selfish, you have to make those sacrifices yourself. My dad was, just going a little bit off topic here, he was a professional table tennis player.
Oh, wow.
He was European champion.
Oh, wow.
And he went down that route, and that's another route I could have potentially gone down as a young child. But and he made those sacrifices, and I understand that individually he had to do that to get to the top of his sport. I think football is such a good sport because obviously it's a team game. You're working so hard to try and get a goal at the end of it, but you're doing it with your best friends. So I think mentally, for you as an individual, you don't feel isolated. You feel like you're part of a group, and I think that's huge in the game of football. And that's why it is what it is now. It's it's a huge, the biggest sport in the world, isn't it? Most watched sport in the world. So I think it's huge for the mental health as well.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, and I think the accessibility of football itself. You don't really need much. Growing up, you just I used to remember in school we didn't have football. We just got just scrunched up paper with a rubber band and start kicking it about, right? And then you start making goals at the end of the room, and that's it. You've got a football pitch. You've got a game. And I think the accessibility as well. That's why I think, like you're saying, it's one of the, I think, if not the biggest sport in the world. Now, let's come to your role, Kirk, as a sports director and coach, specifically when it comes to child and youth development. On the aspect of mental health, how can football help with that?
I think obviously exercise in itself is great for the mind. So doing the exercise, in football, you're going to have your ups and downs. And I think it's really important that when you play football, that you have those ups and downs, because it's like life. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some, and how do you react from a loss? I don't call it a loss, I call it a learning. So rather than losing, you're learning, and I think that's really important for, like you said, for footballers and for children playing football, that it's good to see that both sides of the game, because it's gonna help you. Okay, might not help you become a professional footballer, because that's what we all dream about, but it will help you in every sort of day life, whether it's your work, whether they go on to be a doctor, physio, or they get something out of football, that they're going to learn so much from having those ups and downs. So I think that's why football is so important, or any sport for that matter. But I think football is great because you do have your low moments and your high moments, and it's a great learning experience.
And I think off the back of that, what you mentioned about the highs and the lows, of course, when we watch football, as you're growing up as a kid, yes, you watch football on the telly, you support your favorite club. you see the spectacular goals like Garnacho's just, over the weekend, that fantastic thing. I think it just made a big impression on my son Yusuf watching it, and first time he's seeing an amazing goal like that. The last time that we had a goal like that was Wayne Rooney's, and Yusuf was still 1 year old at that time. Wow. So he didn't see that.
Yeah.
So now I'm glad that he's able to experience that goal live and seeing it. Now that's going to make a big impression on a child growing up, saying, okay, that's the level I want to get to. At the same time, you'll go through games like you're saying where things don't go well for you, and you might get a draw or you might lose badly. And how do you pick yourself up from those games? Now, from your experience of being at a club like Manchester United, with Sir Alex Ferguson and gigs in your Scholes and your Cantonas, yes, you would celebrate when the team's winning, but what was the dressing room like when you lost, and how have you used that experience to train the youngsters about losing, the art of losing?
Yeah, it is a difficult one, but I think Sir Alex's method was we don't lose 2 on the bounce. It was always the next game so important, because Man United in those generations when I was there were not used to losing. They used to win pretty much every game, but when they did take a loss, if you look at his record, he was so focused on the next game. It was like, okay, that's gone. There's nothing we can do about that. Of course, he would be very angry after the games and animated, which you probably heard about the Fergie head, right? Many times. I've had it once or twice as well.
Oh, wow.
It was all about standards at Manchester United, and they used to train as they would play the game on the weekend. Honestly, the intensity levels in training, how competitive it was. They used to find the games easy on a weekend, mainly because they'd put in such hard work during the week. And they trained like, they were kicking lumps out of each other. They were so competitive. They didn't want to lose any five-a-side game, any shooting drill. And they just had such a great culture that on a weekend, that would bring into the game. And usually, like I said, 9 times out of 10, they wouldn't fear any opponent because they'd be so ready. Preparation is key, obviously.
Yeah.
If they did take a loss, then it would be obviously very... it wouldn't happen very often, so to speak, but they'd be 100% ready for the next game. And I think in Fergie's time, it was very rare they lost 2 games in a row. It was always bounce back. Okay, this game's gone. Mental resilience. We know what we're doing. We know the pathway that we're on. Maybe we just took our foot off the gas in one game. We need to now refocus. And then the whole building, the week towards the next game would be huge. And then usually, they'd go out and win the next game.
So
and put that game behind them.
So that rebuilding starts almost immediately after that loss, the next day.
Yeah.
That you would start training and preparing for the next game so that you don't face the same fate as, losing the before.
Yeah. It would be like a recovery day the next day. Obviously, whatever the gaffer, I still call him the gaffer, Sir Alex, would say in the dressing room. And then the great thing about Sir Alex was that he could lose his cool in the changing room with 1 player or 2 players. And then the next day he would be smiley. You'd think he'd be in a mood for 2 or 3 days. It's gone. Honestly, the way he could just change like that, you'd think, oh God, we need to avoid him for a couple of days. Or the first team would be thinking he would just completely switch and he'd go, right, that's gone. He'd be having a joke and laugh, and then it would be all serious building up to the next game. So to have that mechanism to do that for so long, for 25 years or however long it was unbelievable.
So essentially it's almost like getting it out your system, okay, fine, you've lost, get out of the system. The next day, okay, you have 1 day to get it out of your system,
and then
the second day you start with rebuilding again, moving on to the next
because there's nothing you can do about that result now. You have to move on from it. That's gone. There's no point. Like I said, there's no point going back into that game. That's gone. Once he's had his 2 hours or an hour after the game, and then we move on and we focus and we make sure we win the next one. And that's why they were so successful in that sort of era.
And one thing you mentioned there, which I think is really interesting, again, that we don't see, because we only see the games at the weekends, right? We see the Champions League midweek games, we see the weekend Premier League games, but what we don't see is the training sessions that happen during the week, which you say is where the game actually happens, because you train hard, you go in hard during the week, that, you know, by the time you get to the weekend, it's almost
second
a walk
nature.
in the park.
Yeah, it's second nature.
A second nature. It comes naturally to you.
Yeah.
You don't have to second guess where your teammates are going to be, because you already know where they're going to be, because you've trained. When I get the ball, you guys push up, or when I get the ball, you're going to be there. So that happens. I guess the show happens during the week.
Yeah, behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes. The show happens during the week. And almost like the weekends is just, I guess, you know, a dress rehearsal. You know, it's you know.
Yeah, and that's
it's
why...
the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, that's why the performances at that time were so good.
Yeah.
Because they could just... you know in your mind, football's 90% in your mind as well. And you know that if you've done the prep and you've put in the hard yards during the week, and you've played that competitive football during the week, and you know that intensity, and also you know that you're playing against the best anyway.
Yeah.
If you think about Roy Keane playing against Paul Scholes in training, you know, Ryan Giggs playing against Gary Neville, you know that you're up against top opposition in training, and you know that the Premier League players, apart from, I think in that era would be Arsenal, that would probably be, you know, head to head with Man United. You know that the players you play against on the weekend are not as good as the ones as your teammates. Then psychologically, then you already know, if we turn up at the weekend on Saturday and we're 8 or 9 out of 10, we're gonna comfortably win the game. And I think that's just stemmed through the club, and that's why they were so successful during that time.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, echoing back to what you're saying about the preparation, which is why, you know, when you come to the academy, the GoPro Academy that you have at the moment with the coaches, the kids train 2 to 3 times a week, midweek, and then you've got your matches at the weekend. So by the time they've done 2 to 3 sessions, you've worked through the drills, you've worked through the games, the mini games. By the time you get to the weekend, again, they should be prepared.
Yeah.
And a lot of the nervousness yes, sometimes you do still get nervous when you get on the pitch, but you know, it comes naturally, because when you get the ball, it becomes second nature, which is what you're talking about. You know, it becomes second nature. It almost becomes automatic, because you've done it already many times, that it's just second nature when when the ball comes to you, you just
know where to pass, you know where your teammates are,
Yeah.
You know the technical stuff that you've done during the week is going to set you up for the weekend, Obviously, it's a little bit different with children, because they second guess themselves a little bit sometimes, because they're going through that stage where, you know, that's why we always say as footballers, we're in our prime when we're 27, because you've learnt the game so much, you've had so many experiences, so many ups and downs. Obviously, players developing at a younger age are still, you know, they're maturing, they're getting used to the bodies, there's off-field stuff, there's school. So, you know, they're not going to be at their peak when they're playing as a 10-year-old to a professional footballer. But what we're trying to do is instill the good foundations into them, so they are prepared as much as we can, as much as possible. So
the core values and the core aspects are already instilled early on. That means to get into a group sport, to experience the highs and the lows, you know, at a young age. And I think that's, you know, we talk about mental resilience, because resiliency, if they're able to deal with these emotions much early on in life, I think that's a great advantage, because by the time you get much older, you're able to kind of be a bit more mentally resilient and emotionally resilient. I think that's another key thing to how do you deal with emotions, especially at a young age. You know, when I reflect back in my own experience, you know, playing the game, and, you know, we didn't really have that structure. So you didn't know how to handle defeats. You didn't know how to handle disappointments. Whereas, you know, now a lot of talk has been about mental health, especially at a young age. So I think that's a great thing that we can introduce to the kids.
Yeah, I think it's huge in life, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Now, when we talk about mental resilience, your time at Manchester United, and we all know Sir Alex Ferguson's Fergie time. Now, I have a theory, and I'm sure there's a lot of theories out there about Fergie time and why I say us because we're Manchester United.
Yeah.
We were so successful during Fergie's time, because a lot of our games were won in the last 10 minutes of the game, which I think is very crucial. Now, from your experience, what has Fergie instilled in the players that allows us to win, especially in the dying moments of the game?
It's a combination of things. I think it's the fact that obviously the training, the prep that we talked about, never give up. the intensity of the training, keep going to the end. I think Manchester United in that era knew that eventually the grind down teams and the spaces would come, but there's got to be a patience to it. What was fantastic about watching the games in those days was you'd never see any of the players panic in the last 10 minutes. It'd be like, no, we're going to keep playing. We're going to keep moving the ball. We're not just trying to shoot from all angles. We're not going to just put crosses in, hopeless crosses in, hoping that something's going to happen. We're going to make something happen. And I think that was I used to be a lot of the games at Old Trafford during when I was a scholar or a reserve player, and you knew it was coming. You could smell it. You knew that they can't hang on for this long. Eventually something will happen, and it was patience. It was keep going, and also that never give up mentality. We played to the 96th minute, which happened so many times. I mean, treble winning. Remember in Barcelona. I remember so many games where eventually there would be a space that opened and then we'd take the chance. And it was all to do with patience, never give up mentality, and all the prep that you'd done during the week. And that's why at that time they used to win leagues and Champions Leagues just because of that. I think you put it down to never give up, but you also put it down to tactical and technical as well, because players are on the pitch and they're not thinking there's 10 minutes to go. They're still thinking, okay, we've got time. You can score a goal within 1 second. So even if there's 3 minutes to go, you can still get a goal. And Fergie instilled that in the players. And then obviously he had his leaders as well. He had his managers on the field at that time, Roy Keane, Brian Gigg, Gary Neville, Rio Ferdinand. These are all captains in themselves. So it wasn't just what Fergie'd say from the sidelines. You're also, those sort of messages are still being put on the field. And that it's okay, guys. We've still got time. Don't worry. We'll get the goal, and once we get the next goal, we'll go on and win the game. I mean, it happened. I think it was the Spurs game. I don't really remember it. We were 3-0 down at half time.
Yeah, and we came back,
and it was 5-3. And all apparently, I wasn't there at the game, but all Sir Alex said was in the dressing room was, guys, all you need to do is score one, and they will fold. Wow. And don't worry, you'll get at least one goal, and as soon as you get one, the floodgates are open. Wow. You'll win this game comfortably. Don't panic. Just keep playing the way you thought. You're still creating chances. We haven't played badly. We've just conceded silly goals. Trust me, second half we'll get one, and the crowd will be on the backs, and we'll get a few more. And it finished 5-3 in the end. So yeah, there was lots of examples of that in those Man United games.
I think that's amazing. I mean, especially the mental resilience of the coach himself, Sir Alex. When you're 3-0 down, I think if I was a coach, I'd start to change, okay, you off, you on, we need to do this, we need to do that. But he's just saying,
so calm.
Just keep playing. Keep playing the way you're playing. Because he sees something that when you're playing, you don't, I guess, there's a lot of emotions.
You go up in the moment, you're playing, they tenses high emotions and stuff like that.
And you're thinking, oh my God, we're losing 3-0.
Yeah.
And he's saying, just play the way that you do, just try and get the next goal. And to instill that in the players, to say that it's okay, it's going to be okay. I think it takes a lot of courage, and
it's your trust in your players, isn't it?
And trust, and
trust in what you've done during the week. He trusted those players. You wouldn't have been a Manchester United player unless you had Fergie's trust, and you had to be at the top. Not just mentally, but physically and technically. So he knew that he had the players, that Man United were a far better team than Spurs, and it was just a case of believing in yourself, getting that early goal, second half, and then the floodgates would open, which is what happened so many times.
Yeah. And I guess, when you talk about the last 10 minutes, that's where, like we were talking about just now, like you mentioned about just now, most of the teams start to kind of ease off the gas. If you're winning, they start to ease off the gas because, it's only 10 minutes. But if you're a Manchester United player, space and time kind of almost disappears because you're not thinking it's 10 minutes. You're thinking, we can win this. It's a different space-time mentality, right? You're not looking at the clock. You're thinking, we're going to win this, regardless of the scoreline. And I think that's a different level of, mental toughness, mindset. Yeah.
It happened, like I said, so many times.
That's why I'm still amazed. Like, when I look back at those games, Fergie time, it's like, even now I'm watching the games with Yusuf, the old games, on MUTV, and I'm like, just wait, just wait, just wait. You sort of say, oh, we're losing. I said, just wait, wait till the end, because that's where we start playing.
Yeah, and other teams used to get tired because they'd held on for so long.
Yeah.
And Sir Alex knew that eventually
you're going to wear them out.
You wear them out. Yeah, because you're losing. Let's say they're losing 1-0 with 10 minutes to go, but he always knew that they've probably done well to hang in the game at 1-0. It should be, United probably should have scored a few more goals. And he knew that in the last 10 minutes, that's when the concentration goes, that's when the legs start kicking in, the mind starts going. And if you're defending for, 90 minutes against a top team, eventually you're going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
And that's when Man United used to get all the results. So, yeah.
Quick question. Have you ever had the hairdryer treatment from Sir Alex?
I've had it twice, yeah. The first time was, it wasn't just me, but the team got it. We were representing Man United in the Youth Cup, which is a huge competition. Obviously, the class of 92 won it. And it was like the big stage as a youth footballer. So once you get to that, you're full-time, 16 to 18, you play in the Youth Cup, and all the games are at the stadiums. And Sir Alex comes and watches. We played Blackburn away in my first year when I was 16, 17, and we were awful. We were terrible. We ended up getting a draw, actually. We were 1-0 down with 5 minutes to go, and a guy called David Healy. I don't know if you've heard of David Healy. He used to play for Northern Ireland, great goal scorer. He got us a goal out of nothing, and we came in and we were all happy. We got a draw. We were playing a replay at Old Trafford because this was away at Ewood Park, and he came in and he absolutely hammered everybody individually. That is not how you play as a Man United player. Do you think any of you are gonna? And he, pointed to me, pointed to Wes Brown, John O'Shea. Do you think you're going to play in my first team, playing like that, representing this club like that? So we all knew, how important it was to. I think we're nervous. I think we're nervous because of the occasion and stuff like that. But if you want to be a Man United player, you've got to be able to play in front of a crowd. You've got to be able to play in the stadium. So it was a massive learning curve for me. But yeah, we all got it after the game, and we realised very quickly that we don't want to be upsetting Sir Alex again. 100%. Yeah.
I don't think anyone would want to do that.
No. Everyone was scared of him, but respectful as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was a great man.
Oh, amazing. So Kirk, I just want to talk about that shift from playing to coaching.
Yeah.
So if you could just share with us the story of how you transitioned from being a Manchester United player to now coaching the academy.
I think it's the second best thing that you can do as from playing the game to passing on that knowledge to younger players. And yeah, obviously I miss playing. I think everybody does. As professional footballers, but there comes a time where it is going to stop. We're not all robots. We're not all Cristiano Ronaldo.
I still think he's a robot.
Yeah, he's probably a robot. But we all can't play till we're in our 40s or 50s. So there is going to be a time where you have to think, okay, I need to think about what I'm going to do next. And I think because I was at Man United for so long, I was there 15, 16 years under so many different managers and so many different coaches, and learnt so much, not just at, funny enough, Man United. I was at Royal Antwerp, I was at Blackpool, and learning not just all the good stuff but also the bad stuff as well. I've had coaches where they've not been great. We've not been organised, the man management hasn't been there, so I'm trying to learn from those people, not what to do, and also learn from the people, the amazing coaches, the Brian Kidds, the Nobby Styles, the Sir Alex's, Jim Ryans, Paul McGuinness, Tony Whelan, all those guys who I've had, through the years. So I think for me and I think for a lot of people, ex-players, is you want to pass on that knowledge to the next generation, and you want to nurture them, you want to make them better, you want to make them improve on and off the field, and also, as a GoPro, high standards, every training session, try and train like you're going to play on a weekend. So try and instill that. So it's the next best thing. And also seeing a player that you've had from the age of 7 or 8. It's difficult in Dubai because it's very transit. People leave and move. But we've had some players who we've had for 10 years who are now going to scholarships or have made it pro. So seeing that development, there's nothing better than seeing that development and seeing that pathway and seeing that child who you had from such a young age go to the next level and hopefully make a career out of the game. So yeah, I would say it's so enjoyable, and like I said, you're nurturing those kids for the next generation, and that's what we're trying to do at GoPro.
Amazing. I want to touch on something a bit personal, Kirk, if that's okay. I mean,
of course,
about the injury that you got.
Yeah.
If you can just share with us the story of what happened and how did you come out of that, when we talk about in terms of your own personal mental resilience and mental toughness, and what did you need to do to get out of where you were before to where you are now?
I think the injury, as bad as it sounds, I think it actually helped me in life, because yes, I would say I was on the pathway to the first team. Sir Alex had spoke very highly of me in the papers, and he'd sold Danny Higginbottom. I don't know if you heard of Danny. He sold him to Derby County, and he said, I was coming through. I just signed a 3-year contract. Actually, been on loan to, Royal Antwerp, which is the feeder club, and done really well. We'd managed to get promoted. Played every game. I felt like I was invincible. That sort of feeling where you're absolutely flying. You're getting a lot of talk in the background about, potentially you could be coming back and training with the first team. And then I picked up this injury I think it was around the April time. So we'd already won the league in Belgium. And I didn't think it was going to be too bad. It was just a groin injury. And I thought, okay, I might be out. I'm going to miss the last month of the season. But I will be back, for September sort of thing. I came back to Man United. And back then, we're talking 25 years ago now, I think, around that time, they didn't have the sort of technology that they've got now. So they tried different things. First of all, they thought it was a hernia operation, which is a standard procedure. I had a hernia operation, and they said I'd be back within, let's say, 6 weeks. So I was like, okay, I can take that. So had the operation, went through with it. Unfortunately, it broke down again. Still had this pain in the groin. I went to see so many different doctors, and they just couldn't work out what it was. So they said to me, okay, we think that you've just overtrained as a kid, and your biomechanics and everything, or your body, at the moment, just needs to rest. You've just overdone it.
The first time that happened, was that during a game, or was
it was just during a game. I just felt it, and I had to come off, and then it was. I still remember it was a game, in Antwerp, an evening game, and I felt it. I had to come off. I felt very uncomfortable. I couldn't sort of squeeze my sort of legs in. I felt sharp pain in the groin, and I was just like, okay, this doesn't feel right. But
you can't walk, basically. I mean, it's a huge muscle.
It's a huge muscle, yeah. It was the same injury that Steven Gerrard had as a kid as well. So I think he was suffering, and it was a career-threatening injury for him as well. I think eventually we went to see the same doctor. So I ended up having 6 months out. I came back again, same pain, and this is now you're thinking, I'm actually ever going to play football again. I then did a little bit of rehab, did some core work, and eventually, after about a year and 3 or 4 months, went to see a doctor in Leeds, and he did this procedure where it was, a case of this is my only chance now of potentially playing. He did the procedure. I was again recovery. I managed to get myself back training, but we're now sort of 2 years into my contract. I've missed out. This player's coming through. And that chance then is gone. So mentally, it was very tough. I had days where I was like, I'm never going to play football again. Something that and this is, the importance of also having that backup plan as a footballer, having that education, doing something else, because, these sort of things can happen in football, and, it can be over within a second. So it was very tough, but like I said, I managed to get myself back playing, not to the level that I was. I had 1 more year then left on my contract. I played in the reserves. I had a few clubs looking at me, lower league clubs, and then I eventually got my move to Blackpool. So I still managed to stay in the game, but for me, it was very, very difficult, because I played with Wes Brown, John O'Shea. You were all playing for the first team, and as a Man United fan, as a Man United player, you want to play in that first team. And that was obviously taken away from me when I was 18. Wow. So it was very tough, but I think I eventually handled it quite well, because I thought to myself, it's not meant to be. I've still had, I think if you look at the bigger picture, I've had 15 years at one of the best clubs in the world, great memories, and not everybody's going to make it into that first team.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to look at it as a positive rather than a negative.
And I think what you're doing right now is fantastic, because you're transferring that knowledge that you've got to the next generation. I think not many people are in a position to do that or have the privilege to do that. I think that's fantastic, because that's what it's all about. I believe that's what life is all about.
Yeah.
It's about gaining the experience, but then what you do with this experience, I mean, you're not going to take it with you. You're going to transfer it on, pass it on. And I keep going back to the ripple effect of how we can influence and help not only us, our community, our friends and family, but the wider generation at large. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's tough, but it's good to look back on now, and also, like I said, pass it on to other people.
Yeah.
We have a couple of injuries. We have my son's injured at the moment.
Right.
He's got osgood-schlatter, which is growing pains in the knee.
Right.
So he's been out for 2 months, and he's going to be out until probably January. And I've said to him, look, don't worry, you'll get back.
Yeah.
It's not a career-threatening injury. You've just got to be patient. So he's now having to show the mental side of it a little bit, and I'm trying to just say, these things happen in football. I'm trying to explain my experiences and say these things will happen in football, but with you getting an injury now, if you get another setback when you're 17, 18, you'll know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Because you've been out of the game, and also it'll make you want to play more, and not take it for granted that you're on the field. So I think that's really, really important.
So I think that's critical what you've mentioned, that from your own personal experience in your own family, and how your boy is going through what he's going through right now, but then to have someone like yourself, a dad, to saying it's going to be okay, to have that someone, a coach or a role model to be able to guide you from that early age. I think it's really important, so that you are determined, you develop the determination, the hope, and the mental toughness from a young age to say that I'm going to bounce back.
Yeah.
Kirk, we're coming up to the tail end of this conversation. I just feel like we've just started.
Yeah.
I want to keep going for another hour. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. But just before we go, I just have a few last questions, which I haven't told you about. But I hope you're okay with going with this quick-fire question round.
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm doing it a little bit different this time because, of course, we're football fans. So the first question is, who has been the best player that you've played with?
Paul Scholes. It's quite an easy answer. I was very lucky because the first team, I think, had gone to Australia on tour. I think it was after the treble. No, it was after France 98. And Paul's wife was pregnant. She was about to give birth. So he trained with the reserves for 2 weeks, and it was an eye-opener. He was unbelievable. Every day in training standards. Technically, he could do everything. I mean, we used to watch him all the time anyway, but then to see it firsthand and him train with us for 2 weeks. So, yeah, I think it's no surprise that all the top players who played against him, Zidane's, Iniesta's, Xavi's, have all said the best player they've ever played against is Paul Scholes. It's been quoted. And we used to see it every day in training, and we were just like, there's no way we can get to that level. We cannot get to that level. And funnily enough, he was only 5'8". Had asthma, not physically great, but mindset and his ability. He knew where the next pass was. He could see things that people couldn't see, and obviously his technical was amazing as well. So for me, I played with some great players, but Paul Scholes was the best by far. Yeah,
and you retired and came back out of retirement.
Yeah, and if you remember the game that he came back to, it was Man City. So yeah, I think it was a cup game. I think we were 1-0 up in the game, or 1-0, and he came on, and the stats were that he made more passes in that second half than Man City made in the whole game.
Wow!
So he just came on and just bossed the game. Yeah, I just as a Man United fan and as an ex-player, I just felt so comfortable when he was on the ball. It was like, okay, just give it to Scholesy, and he'll just dictate what to do, when to pass long, when to pass short. I know I've gone on a little bit now, but yeah, he just felt like I said, sometimes in games where it's a bit tight or there's pressure, you feel like, oh, who should we give the ball to and who's going to dictate the play? And it was always Paul Scholes. I think anybody from that era would back me up on that one.
Awesome. Yeah. I second that.
Yeah. We're very lucky to have him. Yeah. What a player.
Amazing. Okay, one last advice for kids tuning in to the Academy podcast. What would you say to them?
If they want to play at a decent level at football or they want to improve, I would say practice is key. We say it to our children at the academy all the time. We can only do so much within the hours that we've got. Some players are training once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. But if you want to perfect your skill, then you have to put in the hard work behind the scenes. So go and practice. We did it. It was a bit old school, but we used to have a ball on the wall. Just practice against the wall. You don't need many tools. You don't need all the fancy technology. If you practice with your left foot, right foot, control, technique, all that sort of stuff, you're going to improve so much quicker than the other players that aren't doing it. So that would be my thing. And also sacrifice a little bit, if you've got a game on the weekend, make sure you have an early night, make sure you're eating the right stuff, make sure you're up early in the morning to make sure you've got, you're prepared for that game. So I would say those would be my things for children who want to improve as a footballer. Put in the sacrifices, put in the hard work behind the scenes.
Amazing. And off the back of that, how can a parent tuning into this episode get in touch with you and GoPro?
Well, our website, you can go through our website or our social media. It's all there. I think it's my number that comes up on the website. So yeah.
So direct line to Kirk.
Yeah.
So we'll put all the social media handles and how to contact the GoPro Academy on the episode description. Okay.
Perfect, yeah.
Last question.
Go on.
I'm going to ask it anyway. Ronaldo or Messi? Thinking about it.
It's a tough one. I'm actually going to go against the grain here. I'm going to go with Messi.
Ooh, okay.
Although big United fan, I love Ronaldo so much, but I have to say, for me, Ronaldo is self-made, isn't he? He's put in the hard work and which is fantastic. But I think Messi is more of a gifted player. I would say he's just been given that gift, and I think Messi can play a number of positions. You could put him as a midfield player. You could play him as a right winger, left winger, whereas Ronaldo is an out-and-out goal machine. But again, it's such a tough decision. Tough call to choose between the two. But I would just slightly edge Messi.
Messi on top of Ronaldo.
Yeah, slightly controversial being a United fan, but I have to be honest.
No, that's fine. Fine. Great answer. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until the next episode, peace and love from me always, and from Kirk.
Thank you very much for having me on, and we'll hope to see some of the academy players down at the academy soon.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Special thanks again to Kirk for his time and sharing his story with all of us. If you'd like to know more about the Academy, then visit their website at www.go-prosports.com. You can also contact Kirk and the Academy by dropping an email to info@go-prosports.com. I hope all of you tuning in, if you haven't done so already, can give your own feedback about the show. Which episodes resonate with you? What have you learned from them? How have they changed your life in a positive way? Do leave your comments and I'll read them out. You can leave your feedback at www.camilshah.com/podcast. The site again, www.camilshah.com/podcast. A quick reminder again to subscribe to the Academy podcast with me, Kamil Shah, on whatever platform you get the podcast on. Don't forget to follow me and my guests on social media and tag us with your favorite episodes. Until the next episode, stay safe, stay healthy, and peace and love from me always.